Audiobook Academy Biography presents J. Paul Getty. President of the Getty Oil Company, American tycoon J. Paul Getty amassed a fortune. For the J. Paul Getty Museum and other artistic activities, his J. Paul Getty Trust provides financial support. Early in the 20th century, his father's activities in the oil industry attracted J. Paul Getty to the industry. From his 1930 takeover of his father's business until his 1967 amalgamation of numerous businesses into the Getty Oil Company, he had become the richest man on the planet. Famous art collector J. Paul Getty was also the founder of the J. Paul Getty Trust, which owns a museum on his California property. After his grandson John Paul Getty III was abducted and held for ransom in 1973, the story of his kidnapping and subsequent release was documented in 2 films and a television series, All the Money in the World, 2017, and Trust, 2018. Early childhood. J. Paul Getty was born on December 15, 1892, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minne-Homa Oil Company was formed by his father, George Franklin Getty, in Oklahoma in 1903. They went to Oklahoma immediately, but within a few years Sarah Risher Getty and their son moved back to Los Angeles. In 1909, Getty graduated from Polytechnic High School in Los Angeles, California. He attended the University of Southern California and the University of California at Berkeley before transferring to Oxford University in England. Oxford University's Political Science and Economics department conferred Getty with a degree in 1914. In the name of oil, the world's most. Getty went to the United States after graduating and began working as a wildcatter in Oklahoma, purchasing and selling oil leases. When Getty made his first $1 million from a successful well in 1916, he and his father established the Getty Oil Company. He briefly retreated to Los Angeles to enjoy his newfound wealth, before returning to the oil sector in 1919 to continue his work. Drilling and lease brokering were 2 of Getty's father's main sources of wealth accumulation throughout the 1920s. Getty inherited a $500,000 fortune when his father, George, died in 1930, and became president of his father's oil company, but his mother still had the majority stake. Upon assuming his new role, Getty immediately set about restructuring his former employer and turning it into an entirely self-sufficient enterprise, complete with its own drilling, refining, transportation, and sale of crude oil. After acquiring Pacific Western Oil, Skelly Oil, and Tidewater Oil, he expanded his business empire. By spending millions of dollars in the neutral zone between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia following World War II, Getty also took a big risk. In 1953, when oil was discovered and began flowing at a rate of 16 million barrels per year, his bet paid off. Getty was voted the richest man in the world by Fortune magazine in 1957. It wasn't until the mid-1970s that he was reported to have accumulated a personal wealth of between $2 and $4 billion from his various business ventures. Kidnapping and the family. Getty's private life was frequently the focus of tabloid speculation, both in the United States and overseas. 5 times he was married and divorced. George Franklin Getty II was his first child from his first marriage to Jeanette Dumont, 1923. Adolph Vinnie-Hellmuth, with whom he had a son named Jean Ronald, was his 3rd wife and the mother of his 4 children. Eugene Paul Getty, after known as John Paul Getty Jr., and Gordon Peter Getty were both born to Getty and actress Anne Rourke, whom he wed in 1932. He married Louise Teddy Lynch, a singer, for the 6th time and final time in his long life. After tying the knot in 1939, they had a son, Timothy, and divorced in 1958. In addition, the Getty family made headlines when tragedy befell his children. Timmy Getty was diagnosed with a brain tumor as a child and died in 1958 at the age of 12. George II died of a drug overdose in 1973. In 1973, John Paul Getty III, the billionaire's 16-year-old grandson, was kidnapped and kept hostage in Italy as a ransom. For the record, Getty refused to pay the ransom, declaring, "I have a total of 14 grandkids. 14 stolen grandchildren await if I pay a single cent." The billionaire finally agreed to a lower payment when the kidnappers cut off the teenager's ear and sent it as proof they meant business. John Paul later developed a severe drug addiction, which led to a stroke and left him confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Art, death, and remains. A youth, Getty made his first art acquisitions and by the 1930s had a sizable collection. J. Paul Getty Museum Trust was created in 1953 after he began donating some of his collection to the Los Angeles Museum of Art in the late 1940s. J. Paul Getty Museum opened in his Malibu ranch house in the following year, after known as Pacific Palisades. In 1974, he reopened the museum in a facsimile of a Roman villa that he had built on the land. In 1959, Getty moved his business operations and his family to the vast 16th-century estate known as Sutton Place in Surrey, England. On June 6, 1976, he died of heart disease and was buried on his Malibu estates. His philanthropic trust received $1.2 billion in his will. Getty Foundation, Research Institute, and Conservation Institute were all part of a larger plan to enhance the Getty Museum's impact on the art world. The Getty Center complex, which overlooks Los Angeles, was inaugurated in 1997. Trust and all the money in the world. Moviegoers in 2017 were captivated by the true story of John Paul Getty III's 1973 abduction. John Paul Harris' mother Gail Williams is portrayed by Michelle Williams in Ridley Scott's All the Money in the World, which also stars Mark Wahlberg as James Fletcher Chase, the ex-CIA agent recruited to discover John Paul's missing grandchild. He cut Kevin Spacey from the film less than 2 months before its December 22 release date after news of sexual harassment charges against Spacey appeared and began reshooting with Christopher Plummer, who received a Golden Globe nod for his outstanding last-minute performance. The Trust, which premiered on FX the following spring, also dealt with the kidnapping. When Donald Sutherland was cast, Hilary Swank played Gail Harris and Harris Dickinson portrayed the conflicted heir, while Brendan Fraser played Chase. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.